Blackwood Road, Chapter 5, The Tunnel. The house was silent. Not the kind of silence that comes with peace, but the brittle, held-breath stillness that follows a scream. Emma hadn't moved from the bedroom floor. Daniel sat with his back to the wall, hands gripping the crowbar until his knuckles whitened. Dust motes hung in the air, catching the morning light like ash in a dead fire. Neither of them had spoken since the floor swallowed Milo. Finally, Daniel stood. His movements were slow, deliberate, like someone walking through deep water. "Emma," he said quietly, "we can't stay up here." She looked up at him, her face pale, eyes glassy. "You saw what's down there?" "Yes, which means we can't wait for it to come back." Her throat worked around a sob. "You're talking about going down, into the hole. Are you insane?" Daniel knelt in front of her, placing both hands on her shoulders. His voice was rough but steady. "Every door is sealed. Every window is solid. The power cuts out whenever it wants. If we don't figure out what's under this house, we're going to end up like them." Emma closed her eyes. The whispering from beneath the floor, that soft, endless chorus of unseen mouths, had faded with the dawn. But she could still feel it, a presence, listening, waiting. "Emma," he whispered, "it wants us down there, and if we don't go, it'll take us anyway." She opened her eyes. Something in his face, the resolve or the exhaustion, she couldn't tell, broke what was left of her hesitation. She nodded once, shaky but certain. The attic door was still blocked with the dresser. It took them nearly 15 minutes to push it aside. The wood felt heavier than it should have been, like the house itself resisted their movements. When they finally cracked the door open, the air that spilled out was cold. Not natural cold, but the kind that crawled over your skin like fingers. Daniel tested the first rung of the old wooden ladder that disappeared into the hole. It creaked, but held. He fastened the flashlight to his belt, gripped the crowbar, and lowered himself down. The darkness swallowed him almost immediately. "Dan?" Emma called down. "I'm okay," his voice echoed, faint and warped by the walls. "Just don't look too hard at it." She didn't want to know what that meant, but she climbed down after him anyway, her hands shaking with every rung. The wood was slick with condensation, and the smell grew thicker the deeper she went. By the time her feet hit the dirt floor, the light from the attic was just a dim pinprick above. The tunnel was narrow, just wide enough for the two of them to walk single file. The dirt walls were packed tight but uneven, like something had clawed through them over decades. There were wooden supports driven into the walls every few feet, but most were cracked or rotten. Daniel raised the flashlight. This wasn't dug for plumbing or foundations. Someone made this. "Who?" Emma whispered. Her voice sounded wrong down here, too loud and too small at the same time. Daniel didn't answer. They walked. The tunnel sloped downward. The farther they went, the more the air changed. It was thick, humid, but beneath that was a scent that made Emma's stomach twist, old blood and wet metal. Every so often, she'd see something in the walls, scraps of fabric half buried in the earth, bits of wood, a child's shoe with no foot inside. She stepped carefully to avoid touching anything. Then they saw the marks. Handprints. Small, smeared into the dirt, some old and faded, others fresh enough to still glisten with dampness. There were hundreds of them, pressed into the walls, ceiling, floor, as if a crowd of small hands had clawed their way deeper and deeper over years. Emma's breath hitched. "Daniel, what if this isn't a tunnel?" Daniel's flashlight beam flicked over the ceiling. "Then what is it?" She swallowed. "It's a nest." After what felt like 20 minutes, the tunnel opened up. A cavern, larger than the house above, stretched before them. The floor was uneven dirt, the ceiling low enough in places to make them hunch. And in the center of the cavern, a wooden structure sat half buried in the earth, a staircase that led to nowhere, its steps crumbling. Bits of wrap paper hung from planks, pieces of the original house. Emmer's skin prickled as she whispered, "This is part of the old house, before it burned." Daniel swept the light around. That's when they saw the drawings. The walls were covered in them, children's drawings scrawled in charcoal and blood, crude figures with black, hollow eyes, stick-figure families with something large behind them, drawn in heavy, jagged strokes. Over and over the same shape, a tall, thin figure with long arms and a head that seemed to split open into shadow. Underneath some of the drawings, words were scrawled in a child's hand. "He feeds. He plays. Under the floor, forever." Daniel whispered, "Jesus Christ." Then Emma's light landed on something else at the far end of the cavern that made her blood turn to ice. Milo's collar. Lying in the dirt, torn in half, a trail of paw prints led away into a smaller tunnel. Emma covered her mouth. Her body shook, but she couldn't scream. She couldn't. Daniel put a hand on her back. "We're getting out," he whispered, but his voice was shaking too. The sound came from behind them, a soft, wet shuffle against dirt. They turned. The tunnel they'd come from was dark, but not empty. Something moved just out of the light, low to the ground, fast, dragging itself along. Then came the giggle, the same high, breathy laugh they'd heard in the house, but louder now, closer. Daniel raised the flashlight. For half a second he saw it. A child. Or something wearing the shape of one. Its limbs were too long, its head tilted in an impossible angle, hair hanging like a curtain. Its mouth open too wide, stretching downward as it crawled, not on its knees, but on the tops of its feet and hands, backward like a spider. Emma's scream echoed through the cavern. "Run!" he hissed. They bolted toward the far tunnel, the one leading away from Milo's collar. The dirt crumbled beneath their feet. The thing behind them moved faster than it should have been able to, its limbs scraping the walls like nails on a coffin. They ducked into the narrow tunnel. It sloped deeper, tighter. Daniel's flashlight flickered as they ran, throwing broken shadows ahead of them. The air grew wetter, heavier. "Keep going!" he shouted. Emma's hand brushed against something hanging from the ceiling. It was cloth. No, skin, dry and stretched like parchment, a child's dress still clinging to it, fluttering in the stale air. She bit back a sob. The tunnel ended in a wooden door, warped and blackened with rot. It shouldn't have existed down here, a door in the dirt, but there it was. Scratched into it were more words, etched deep. "No one leaves." The pounding began behind them. The thing slammed its limbs against the tunnel walls, howling in a chorus of broken laughter. Daniel dropped the crowbar and threw himself at the door. It didn't budge. "Daniel!" Emma cried. He slammed his shoulder against it again and again. The third time, the old hinges snapped and the door flew inward. They stumbled into the next chamber and slammed the door shut just as the thing reached it. The pounding started immediately, the wood bending inward with each hit. Emma spun around and froze. This chamber was different. A pit sat at its center, a perfect circle carved in the earth. The walls around it were covered with bones, stacked like bricks. Skulls, ribs, tiny femurs, hundreds of them, thousands maybe. And around the pit, someone had arranged toys, wooden blocks, dolls with no eyes, rusted toy cars, each carefully placed like offerings. Daniel whispered, "Oh my God." The air vibrated. A sound rose from the pit, low at first, like wind through a tunnel, then deeper, hungrier. The toys began to rattle. Emma backed away until her spine hit the wall. We need to go. We need to go now. But Daniel had stepped closer to the pit. He wasn't moving right. His breath came out shallow. His eyes were wide, fixed on the black center like something was calling to him. "Daniel," Emma said softly, "step back." "I can hear it," he whispered. "Daniel, please." His foot crossed the chalk ring that circled the pit. The whispering erupted. Voices filled the room, children's voices, hundreds of them, layered and off-key. "Play with us. Stay with us. Under the floor." Something moved in the